faces.
I think so.
Yeah. Maybe move Maddie. No.
All right, welcome everybody.
Tilt her a little bit. That's fine. She's
That's it.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing well. Just first, let's do a quick roll call to make sure we know who's here. Thanks, guys. Stan O'Loughlin.
Maddie online.
Maddie, you're next. Yeah, you didn't know where you were sitting probably.
Shantae Falk. Jill Srader.
Okay. So yeah, we have a quorum. Thank you, everybody who was able to be here. So let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a brief reiteration of our mission statement, which I will read. The mission of ECS is to educate each student to high academic standards using innovative curricula that will foster knowledge, love of, and respect for the environment, preserve it for future generations. We grow citizens. In our vision statement, every ECS graduate will be an actively engaged citizen, driving thoughtful change in the world around them. Do we have a guest tonight to be recognized? We do. Okay. Is there any public comment? Do you have any?
No.
No? Okay. We'll be on the list. All right, Mission Norman. Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, everybody. Welcome. I wanted to just share, actually, what I'm going to do is pass it off to really talented people who are going to share some awesome moments in recent weeks that we've been experiencing. But before I do that, I just want to say we had a really, this is sort of what Dina would say with Dina here. We had a really awesome activities fair night last week, very exciting. We had hundreds of people signed up, and I think almost 200 people came that evening to participate, and lots of folks who were engaged, and lots of folks here from the team were engaged. It was really a good evening. I got to meet a lot of people as well. So that was exciting, and then relatedly, we had a couple of really exciting sort of media hits. We were surprised to learn that we were mentioned on CNN, which is really exciting. But also, I think perhaps like one of our most popular hits or most exciting hits was we did get a news story in the city paper, and then later on KDKA CBS about the xylophone grant, the Mockingbird grant that Emily and the team, the news teacher and the team at the primary school, and then Nicole Foundation had applied for. That's a very exciting little grant. I think a meaningful one, but I think people were excited also because it was related to banned fish, so that was important. They're not coming, but they did send their money. So we'll take that, and we're going to make fish better than fish music with their tools. So we're grateful for that. And then there was I did an interview with the WDSA also, but the other stories were more exciting. So that's what I had to report. I'm going to turn it over to Manny to share some very exciting stuff as it relates to academic work, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Philip.
Friday is the Climate Strike Day for our students. So if you're driving down Drive Avenue, you pull K through 5 students, honk the horn, and be out there to sign, and people know about it. Our high school is going to participate as well, and then our middle school will be their Climate Strike next week, because they had a previously planned field trip for Friday, so they don't want us to sit, so they'll be participating. Also exciting is that our high school students, 16 of them, went to a college fair and scholarship opportunity on the 17th of September, so yesterday, right? 16 of them went. All 16 got accepted into colleges on the spot, and there was a combined total of $272,500 of scholarship money awarded. So it's an amazing opportunity for our kids. They actually have 4 more planned from now through November 19th. So at that kind of excitement was brewing in the high school, so more and more folks are gonna go, let everyone know that.
Well, yeah, it was very exciting. Mary and I got to have a conversation with some of the students when they got back to the.
Yeah, they were so excited, they just wanted to show their, like, word letters to us and talk about it, and I was in the office, and a young man was in the office talking to his family, and everybody was kind of excited about it. I said, well, how come I didn't get to go? The question is, how do I go on the next one? So he turned to the counselor and said, how do I go on the next one? He got signed up.
Great. Thanks for that. I'm also going to turn it over to Nikki. Nikki Hutchinson, I think you guys know her, and she can tell you a little bit about what she does, but she's an awesome, awesome food services director here, and she keeps us well fed and organized in that front. So you want to take it away and tell us what's going on?
Yeah, so I'll start with, if you've seen me before, you've heard this before, I'm more comfortable with the cafeteria, the rules, educators, and adults, but here we are. So you'll see.
What's that, though?
How we can be better, and I have a microphone too, sit down, pay attention. I think, I've been here for 11 years at ECS, and after I took the position as food service director, one of the main questions I always got was, why don't we have free food? Why are we not free across the board? There were many, many reasons for all of that. They were all mind-numbing, they're not super exciting, but there were logistical reasons. I had shared this previously, so I'm going to share how we got to where we are now. So the state of Pennsylvania lowered their ISP. So that's identified students. So those are students that are already directly certified through DC, SNAP, TANF. Some cases, Medicaid, they still have to meet a financial requirement because some diagnoses automatically get you Medicaid, so there's a little component that goes along with that. So the ISP used to be 40%. We were meeting that at the high school and middle school last year, so we were able to go ahead, we had to move to the high school and middle school and to get that, but we got that here. So I feel like there was a lot of miscommunication because we had free breakfast, statewide. Then we had free lunch at middle and high school, and then we had intermediate and primary hanging over here. We had over here, paying for lunch. And so it seemed very inequitable. A lot of those concerns were brought up to the state, how can we group these students, and how can we do it so we're fighting the hunger fight across the board, and not just saying, these kids get to lose money. The state did lower the ISP to 30% last year, but that brings us to the financial constraints. So over the summer, I think that began in April when they lowered the ISP. We have to decide financially because we are reimbursed at that. So let's go with the high schools. Let's say 43%, which students are already directly certified to economically disadvantaged. So of all the lunches we sell on that day, 43% of the lunches we were reimbursed at a higher rate. The rest of them we are reimbursed at almost nothing. It's very different. It's a really high reimbursement rate for the 3 kids, right? So what do we need to do? That was what plan did we need to make over the summer? Well, we can't give it away, and they're not eating it. It's the point, right? We're not doing anything. Menu items, so let's look at menu items. What else were barriers to participation? Lines. If a student comes in and they have 30 minutes for lunch and they see a line out the door, they're going to go talk to their friends and maybe not come up and get a lunch. They might, trickle in later, but so lines also break trust that our menu is going to reflect the one that we send home, and I printed some out for everybody here. The ones that we send home, are we serving what that student doesn't need? Because we don't want to break that trust. There are some days that, we may have a one-off or whatever. We haven't so far this year, and we really didn't towards the end of last year. A lot of that had to do with supply chain issues and things like that, left over from COVID. So we're really focusing on those. So now that we are in week 5 of our new 5-week menu cycle, we had set some goals of communications team and myself. We had all set over the summer to increase participation. Last year, at this time, have a bunch of different numbers, so I'll give you the, last year at this time, we were at 22% participation for lunch across the board. We're at 38.8 for this year for lunch so far across the board. That's taking across the board. We've had significant increases. I report out each week. We are increasing lunch participation at Park Place. They're up 20% daily. I mean, their food is flying out of that kitchen at Mach speed. And for breakfast participation, we are up 11%, which our goal was 20%, we're at 24.9. So all of the little increases that we were hoping for really took off. So now that we have the names, we have the things, we have the items, what I've been spending my time doing now is auditing how the service is going. What are my managers reaching for that they don't have that they need in that moment? What is operationally, what are we going to be able to add? Can we add a full service line in high school? So there is a less line, so there is a decreased line. What does that entail? What do we need to purchase for that? What is it, more bodies? That's not always the answer. Efficiency is more often the answer. So we're auditing the systems down to minute schedules, like who's supposed to be doing what at what time. So that's where we are now, because we want to really sustain this. We don't want to, so that's the other part of breaking the trust, right? The kids have been doing this, and now we don't want to say, oh, well, now you have to wait in line for 100 years, and we're going to run out, we're not going to run out. All of those things. So we're auditing those systems. We are actually putting back in for another food service assistant at high school, because we had taken that away because the meal participation was not meeting that, and now we are. And again, it's one of those things in order to sustain that, so we're not waiting these long lines and having all these things. Another thing I'd like to touch on is our cultural celebrations. They're going really, really well. They're added to the menu every month. We have Indigenous Peoples Day, we have Hispanic Heritage Month, we have, there's something planned for each of them. And at primary and intermediate, there's a lot of programming that goes around those, educational programming that goes along with them. And oftentimes they involve our cafeteria managers, which they get really excited about. Because sometimes it gets hard to feel like you're funding food all day, every day for your life. So having them feel seen is very important to me. Having my team feel appreciated and seen is something I value.
Amazing.
Thank you. This work is made yet. Yes.
Yeah.
So obviously, you guys don't know enough about food service. In terms of really there's a connection between our mission, our mission, our group, sample, food, all of those intersections that can be made potentially. I don't know, I'm curious what we do to kind of use our, to connect up what we do in terms of food with sort of our mission, if there are ways of doing that, or if there are other things that you thought of, or opportunities or really not using that kind of connect on mission or connect, some of those concepts for educational.
Yeah, so a lot of our things that I've noticed are what I realized when I was kind of auditing our system and seeing kind of like a post-COVID, like wake up, like, because I feel like we all just got a little complacent, like, oh, accepting, like, oh, well, we don't have this, so we're just not going to do, and all the changes that we had with the state and everything, they were basically like, here are all the changes, okay, how do I make those changes? We don't know, figure it out. So we're out of that now, and that's kind of where I went with my staff. But I think a lot of our work, we need to advertise a little bit more, because we are making a lot of our mission, we are aligning a lot. We're 85% scratch cook. We incorporate PA harvest of the month. Vegetables and fruits every, and we indicate that on the menus. We are also 100% compostable, reusable, recyclable. We have a group of 7th graders that work, or I don't know if it's all middle school or 7th grade specific, but they were compost captains. I think they came to sports to get the composting back started back up last year. So I think there's a lot of things that are mission aligned that we're not sharing enough, and that's what we're working on that. We worked communications, and we're really working on sharing again. Chef did it last week with community kitchens, who comes and samples out the food, but community kitchens also is mission aligned with us as well. So we have that connection. Yeah, there's a lot of things. There are a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not simple.
I didn't think of it until like last year, so what I'd really like people to realize is it's literally 100%, 1,000 student catering every day. Every day. We don't have a backup. I don't have a backup, something that I can warm up and give to, so we are dealing with delivery times, drivers, temperatures, food safety, the entire thing. It comes to us every day. Here you go. To all four.
This is to me, sort of the new guy, this is, like a lot of things we do here, this is absolutely it's just remarkable. And the thought and the kind of risk taking that went into the CEP, the change that you described, to free meals across the district. It was a bit of a risk, but Nikki and the team, and everybody here, it's not, Nikki's the lead on this, lots of other people really to sort of say, hey, let's figure out how we can make this work. And I just want, she is being very humble. So I just want to ask, can you just talk about like what happened with the one I'm thinking that comes to mind is breakfast or lunch. What was the percentage of participation?
Breakfast for lunch participation is always very high. We were 50% across the building, like all. It was. This is
and that's normally like where.
It was a wild day, like across the district. So if you think about it, so let's use intermediate for example. We did 157 lunches. Like that is putting lunches into the hands of the people. But it's also a preferred meal, right? So that is where the sticking point. So we tested out the pasta primavera, and I got parent emails that were like, I never thought my kids would say anything except for breakfast or lunch day. And she was like, they said pasta primavera. I was like, what? So she went and looked, and she was like, there's a whole new menu. She had no idea. She was like, there's chicken chimichurri on a cool menu like that, and it is. So this is it. So it's getting the food into the student's hands that really matters, and it's not nutrition until right?
Sure.
Like so, we really have. The many changes that we've made, I'm really proud of. We worked really hard this summer and this year. Yeah.
So, aside from, this is first of all, I know it's a logistical nightmare. Yeah, this sounds like what's going on. And it's the first time that I'm digging into it. So, aside from nutrition, which nutrition is around what's eaten. If we just, this is the first time I've done approaching, if we go from say like 25% to 40%, I just know. What does that mean for our schools? Does that mean that are we measuring in terms of we know that 40% of kids still have meals, or is there a financial component to that? Is it compensated more? I just want to understand.
Yeah. So
in simple terms.
Yeah. So sorry. So like I said, for the high school, let's use that as an example, like 46%. So if 100 students buy meals that day, 46 of those meals are going to be reimbursed at $5. The rest of those meals, and we're paying $285, I believe. Yeah, we're paying $285. So that the rest of that money is only 56%. The other students, the other not 46 students, we're only reimbursed out of like 20 cents.
Right.
Through the state. Right. So we really need to increase. So that would be, that would be.
And does it matter which students?
No. So there's no identifying information.
It's just the total
It's based on, there's no identifying information. It's just based on what they ask. So we will compare attendance to students. So if they do a student with we're out. So we can't just really say, oh, this sounds good. This is people got much. There's a lot of people.
But the idea, so there's this challenge of getting reimbursement by also makes it about cool. And this gets all the challenges we're looking at. great trust. And then the other thing I just wanted to add is that, when Nikki was sharing, she shares some of this with me regularly. You look at the numbers, so we're not just seeing increased participation, which is great, but we're also seeing increased participation of the free and reduced rate kids. And so this is, and so she's actually not only getting more kids to eat, she's getting, if we think about kids who are eating. So this is exciting.
And how much increase is there?
There's actually, so the compost goes down at this school. So I monitor intermediate, and we're not composting at the high school. We had it, we got taken away, and so we're in the process of reinstating what that's right? Because we don't have enough for them to basically amount, and then it requires a lot of training for the teachers and staff. It's a lot, because it gets rejected, and I get a phone call at 7 on Saturday morning saying, they're spoiled, but they're compost. I'm like, great, we'll get it out. So I mean, Brian over there, pull all the foil out, and he takes it away. But, so the, here, we are down to 1 bag of compost, or 2 recycle and 2
That's
for the entire. We do our prevention goes to 2 we used to use community bank as our community source, but there's a becoming stage where there's started in one stop, so it's competency stop here, so
So what I meant is like, how much food are you going? How much is that?
so usually, so we were, for an example, so this first 5 weeks, and I shared this with Patrick, and since we were really pushing the school lunch breakfast, we weren't sure how much to order. So we increased it from last year, but we're usually about 30 lunches at the end of the day for school. Some less, I mean, sometimes the other day, and possibly their day, we only had 10 lunches left. No sandwiches. But we're also trying to hit that, like I said, we have to be very mindful of running out. Because there's a catering service, but our stuff is not. We can pull out some leftovers, but I've never done it, and I don't know.
And where's the food being prepared?
At communications.
Okay. So it's all prepared centrally and then delivered to each school.
Have you seen an increase in vegetarian?
Actually, we've seen a decrease. Because we are, because like I said, I've been here for 11 years, we used to have a much higher population. It's available every day, we dairy free is available every day. We always make sure we have those on hand. I actually had a parent, I had a student who was getting regular meals and the parent came down and she was like, we're vegetarian, and I told them that's it, we're vegetarian, but
We thought this is an exciting time. There's a lot of exciting things happening here for Basic Food Service. Obviously, we want to give you more updates as the year goes along. But I wanted to make sure you heard this because it is very exciting to see and hear thinking about how this is working. And there's plenty more work to do as we go through the year. But as you can hear, she's already thinking about it.
Not so much a question of statement or the obstacles, challenges of making this program sustainable.
absolutely. We are applying for, there's another round of government, the breakfast challenge, the government breakfast challenge grant. We were denied the first time, but I went to a webinar yesterday and they gave some, because they were kind of approved the first round already, they gave some really good insight and stuff that they were saying. Not us specifically, but in general, but they were looking for more on applications that were denied. So we have the good recipes, we have the things. They just wanted a more, where we're going to be delivering meals as an alternative service. So they wanted to really see like breakfast at the hotel, grab and go, stuff like that. And
Great. Okay.
That's fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
That is really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Update on the RP knowledge grant.
Absolutely.
Does everybody know about this one?
I did that. I'm also going to just like, Nikki made the right choice sitting over there. So far from the computer that I'm sure they will not.
Oh, this can,
They move
here and talk about this. And for those who I have not had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Elvin. I started here in January, and I'm going to pass it back to Vicki just wants to say something.
We forgot some celebrations, and I think it's a good transition. So Dave Shore, one of our high school students, had a meeting with the president of Google this morning. So he was part of the robotics competition last year with Mr. Stayhauer on that team, went to Texas to compete, and now he's up for a $50,000 scholarship because he built a robot that connects with his passion for football. And so, don't know if you'll get that scholarship, but it was a pretty big deal. And I think the showing how the intersectionality between technology and passion, which is all that Elgin does. Pretty good segue. But there's also in your packet NAAPE. We did get 22 folks across the district registered. We were really excited to send these folks to have this collective commitment around the environmental mission and champion the environmental mission. And what we're really excited about is everybody is going for a set and intention. We'll have reflection and debriefs, but the most exciting is that we're not just youth educators, it's really across departments. And so I think this is a really crucial moment for us. And Elvin has a lot to do with all of that, so go ahead.
And I will give you some small piece of it. Thank you, Vicki, for pointing that out. We are incredibly proud of Dave Shore. I had him in 8th grade last year, and he's a kid that really shows up in his work, and is really proud of the things he does. Just a little bit of background for those who have not had the pleasure of meeting yet. I joined the school as the director of STEM here to think about how we look at our environmental connection to creating and making things across our curriculum. And I've been helping out to build our middle school environmental citizenship track that has had a couple classes in it. And one of the things I'll talk about is where we are now. So this is update from January to this point here. So one of the changes is when I joined as the director of STEM, Vicki and I had conversations around the idea that STEM needs to be connected to our environmental mission and how hard that is for some people to make. So NAAE has started using eSTEM as one of their acronyms, which is environmental STEM, which is creating, making, and design thinking towards the environmental problem solving. So we adopted that moniker in all of our work so that it becomes much more obvious how the connections of what I'm doing with robots and making and our team is doing in these classes connect back to that environmental mission. So one of the things I helped to manage along with Vicki and some others at the school is the Richard King Mellon Grant, which we got to think about innovative ways to foster and increase engagement in the school and bring up academics as well. The two things that I'm looking at under that are increasing students' understanding of identity, strengths, and challenges, as well as opportunities for growth, and thinking about how we bring about respect for diverse perspectives, even though I'm working with our school principal as well as some of our academic team on thinking about some of the other measures for outcomes that we had in that grant as well. Myself and a couple of others, including Dr. Sarah Hall, who is here, have been looking at designing measurement tools around how do we find out if we are actually doing these things. Things like looking at student work and portfolios. We have been piloting student interview tools so that we can pull students in, talk to them about these, and see their growth over time. And we are using programs like Wayfinder, where we want to kind of pull that in and see if we can get some qualitative data out from the students that shows their social, emotional growth over time. That was a program found by Dr. Sarah Hall and brought to the school well before I got here, but has proven to have some great questions and great opportunities. So since we're at the beginning of the year, we're going to see how that plays out. And one of the big ones that we are thinking about how we take on is family case studies. So as we see our target family, as we see our students through the school year, we also want to pull families into the conversation and see how they see that growth over the school year, get their perspectives. And we plan to continue working with Mandy and Patrick to think about how we take all of the Richard King Mellon and all of the questions we also want to ask as we grow as a school and kind of pack them into a year-long connection with a certain subset of our families and how we decide who that subset of our families are. I also took on levels of teacher growth here at the school. So I run our environmental citizenship professional learning community with the teachers who are connected to that track of classes. And one of the things that we do is we went to PD this summer that was called Visit, which is the Washington International School Summer Institute for Teachers, which is connected all together to the Harvard Project Zero, which is all around building thinking classrooms. So as a base for what our new teachers joining and our teachers who've been here for a really long time need is understanding of that thinking classroom space and the reinvigoration around that so that we can push it towards our environmental mission. And then this year we are piloting and testing what it could look like in our professional learning communities to use inquiry as a tool of growth. So now that they've been and had this communal experience, we want to know, like, what did you take from it? What are you bringing into your classroom? And how are you going to test that in with your students to see if we can get our students to that thinking classroom space. Following as well, at that TD, we were able to take a cross-disciplinary team there. So it was not just the environmental citizenship team here at the middle school. We also had our academic instructional coaches there, as well as teachers from our diversified studies space. And it was great to see how we were able to bridge gaps in communication around what the innovative practices we want to do are, what the academic outcomes we are trying to do, and like try and create conversation around the learning that's happening and the teacher learning that we are putting forward through our instructional coaching and our professional learning communities. And yeah.
Two were from high school, so high school
Yes.
academic associate directors, and that was a transformative experience where they came back and wanted to reignite the high school program.
Right.
So that was the ripple effect that we were hoping.
I was gonna ask a question about this.
Yeah, go for it.
What is it program, is that programmatic, or is that also adjusting the built environment as well?
Can you ask that in a different way? Is it programmatic or is it connected to our environmental mission? Is that what you're asking?
More just about like the physical space that you're occupying, it's furniture sitting on, the animation around the room. I'm just curious if like there's opportunities to take that program and what we learned there.
Yeah.
And revisit what high school boards built. Is there opportunity to align or take opportunities?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Vicky's got something to add to that. Yeah.
Yeah, we have it, so it looks like really goes around, not around content, it's around thinking classroom spaces, and so we're connecting that program, so the program to building, and it's an opportunity to reigniting a program that they're coming back with, we're using that as a leverage the reigniting of program to really connect the building, and so we'll, like, we won't shut that off now, but I think that's what we're all thinking.
Maybe one small bit of background is building thinking classrooms is connected to the making thinking visible routines. And so a lot of that goes towards how do we get kids to not only show us some product of their thinking like a traditional model, but how do we get them to tell us how they are thinking through that process as a measure of student growth. Yeah.
So it wasn't as explicit, but we are on the ground facilitating those connections.
Right.
Yeah, I'll say something then, so you keep.
Right. Well, it actually kind of jumps to like building and space as well, because one of the things that we did is we did a learning space redesign for specifically our environmental citizenship classes for 6th and 8th grade, where using K-12, one of the not just furniture companies, but education companies around classroom spaces, we connected with them around pedagogy, culture, and equipment to create a space that really gets at what we're looking at. So we were able to purchase through the RKM grant more modular furniture, more spaces for writing and creating in the room, so it's filled with whiteboards now, and we were just able to change the atmosphere around what that classroom was meant to do, and we continue to grow in that way. So, fantastic.
And that's the ECS parent, it's a K-12 class.
Yes, tons of connections. So that's just a little bit about what's happening with the RKM grant. There are a couple of other irons in the fire, but those are the ones that are top of mind. On the back of your sheet, you'll see that we did a bit of a redesign. When I got here in January, we had about 8 classes, I think. No, it was about 8 classes in the EC track. And one thing that we found was it was all amazing classes, but it was difficult to figure out the connections between them and how we were creating a progression. So Vicky, myself, and Rachel sat down and created a new schedule that had a direct connection from 6th grade to 8th grade, ending with the 8th grade capstone, where the students get to build and take action in the community by taking on sustainable development goal and creating an action around it, and then creating a sustainable container around it, call it a business, call it a nonprofit, call it something, and then present it to experts. And so we start in 6th grade with a foundations level course, which we're running right now, and then the follow-up is to give them the skills and abilities to make things through our robotics and remix spaces, which is coding and maker, and all the maker like equipment that we have, and then send them out into the world to do their exploratory cohort quests, which they connect with students and outside organizations over multiple fields, multiple learning experiences, and then they bring that back to do that kind of stuff. So we recreated those tracks, and now we are in the middle of running them and seeing how that goes, as well as getting getting that data for the Richard King Mellon. And then one of the big things that it allows us to do is, as we get more kids that go through it, we will see how our future high schoolers are able to like access more outside opportunities, community-based support, as well as just like the workforce pipeline, connecting with sustainability and green infrastructure, which is big in Pittsburgh. And so I guess the last thing here is just we continue to think about our EcoForge, which for those of you who don't know is our environmental focused makerspace. Makerspaces are huge in this world, and we want to make sure that our makerspace lives into our mission, which is helping our kids to be innovative and challenge and create problems and solve problems around the environment. And so we are looking into how we get materials that both connect to the STEM part and the environmental part and the intersections between it, and create classes between those. So we've got a couple of equipment purchases that have already happened and some that we are thinking about. We've got a couple of grants pending for that, but we are thinking about how we fund our construction project. Because it is going to be in the locker rooms downstairs, and there's an opportunity for us to like turn that whole space into the EcoForge itself. So I'm going to pause there because I've just said a lot, and then pass it to Patrick because you want to add something. All right, then we will open to questions.
So this is awesome, by the way. First, I know you say about asking this next question. So we have a lot of thought leadership around the curriculum here. Is there, from your perspective, is there any opportunity for us to share this thought leadership beyond our school and to the rest of possibly the environmental school community? I should have done this as a segue to the EE. But I would just love to know your thoughts. Like some of these things, I know we are bringing programs to the school, but the combination of all of these probably is giving you a lot of thoughts on what cohesively what this looks like and what opportunities we have to share. I just love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that's 100. Like when you look at our strategic framework, one of the big things is taking thought leadership around the environmental, like not just environmental mission, but environmental education. And so NAEE is an amazing space where we're going to get a chance to connect with other leaders in the educational space to do this. I will be there, Vicky will be there, and a number of other people, not just in the curricular space, but in our building leadership as well as operations will be there as well. So that'll give us an opportunity to network in that like sense. That, and we've already done some of that level of network. We were able to connect earlier this year with Boston Green Academy, who came here to both see what we were doing and talk about what they're doing. And Vicky, as well as myself, stay in contact with them, getting information and sharing information both ways. And we are even thinking about how we get out to spaces and see what else is happening, and also like talk to them about what's happening in our space as well. So this is like, we're at stop one on getting it to happen. But you are absolutely right. There's a lot happening in the background that we're saying, how do we, like if this is successful and when this is successful, we will, how will we put this out in front of people? NAEE is one way to do that networking. But there is also PAEE, which is the Pennsylvania Environmental Educators Conference, and how do we get more of a presence in spaces like those?
At the NAEE, we have, so through Boston Green Academy, connected to trying to build that, but it's called Teach City 2.0, but it's on the northeast side, trying to get Boston Green Academy, Environmental Charter School, and school up in New England back into a network of green schools.
community, so that we can support each other. But then through that, connect with a lot of nonprofits. So we have some meetings that are Common Ground, which is around systems thinking. Subject to Climate is also, I had a meeting with them, and they want to connect with us there. Thinking about shared funding opportunities, what we just talked about, New Sunrising, and talk about how can we go for shared grants, founder strategies. So there's thinking about cross sector as well, and not just in education, but we were at Remake Learning Assembly, and one of the reflections we also have is how do we articulate what we're doing here to be able to share out what we're doing, like Remake Learning does, and some of that is just communicating it.
Right.
And so I think we're getting close, but we continue to build those networks.
And I'll just a couple things that I want to add first. So Vicki, Elvin, and Nita, the innovation team, they're doing great work that Elvin's describing here, particularly like a lot of this stuff, not all of it, a lot of it's focused on the school. But it is having this spillover effect into the high school, and so Vicki had said there's a reignition of, hey, how do we really think now about what's happening in the middle school? The middle school's here, it's happening. They're doing great work, and we're going to love it. So then how do we folks are asking, hey, how do we carry this forward in high school stage? And so there's a lot of thought right now, particularly around that. And so I think, that's probably our most important thinking is how to make sure that we're making that transition middle to high school, and that there's a consistency literally K as well. So I think that's the team's main focus. And then the other thing to say is that I've been, so you guys can correct me, but I've been sort of thinking of these guys as like our in-house consultants, right? And they're a team that's going in, they're getting embedded, they're doing this work, they're getting people able and helping people activate the things they want to activate, see the things they want to see, and stuff maybe that they didn't, right? That's part of, I think, bring a lot of that to the table. And then sort of helping them move stuff along. At some point, they're going to move on and go on to another project that's related and similar, but they're going to move on. So I think, I also just want to make sure that that's clear because there's a lot of energy here about this, and it's great, and they're infectious. That's part of what's great about it. You assist them for a while, and you get the infection too. It's a good infection. I mean that in a positive way.
I'm not on that, you are.
Did it like get to pandemic levels maybe? Or?
This is really exciting, or I hadn't thought about it this way, or wow, you're doing this, right? And it's that kind of stuff. It is really like suddenly people are motivated in a way that they're motivated genuinely. This sort of helps sort of channel in a particular direction.
And one of the beautiful things that's already happening because of the work we did in 8th grade last year is that the kids in 9th grade that we matriculated are coming back and asking, like, when are we doing this thing that we did in middle school and high school? So we're creating a bit of a swell as kids are moving on and taking these ideas from one place to another. So as we think about the larger district, we have an opportunity to really incubate some innovation.
Incubate, that's
I was just going to say, I think it's I don't want to even get into the incubated infection. I'm not sure either of them that good, but also you mentioned consultants. I sort of thought you were going to say what it sounded like to me. Almost it's like having a resident think tank kind of within the school. But to Rohit's point, and I don't know, obviously, this is not really my area of expertise, but to your question, I think in addition to these outside groups and collaboration, this is not today, but this is a future opportunity potentially along the lines of something that we've discussed, which is something potentially for our foundation to utilize, so we can also, we're taking things in from the world and using them, but we're also sending out signals, and that's, I think, probably one of the potential forum for that is utilizing our foundation and however we determine it's best to utilize it to kind of get the message out and share some of our successes and try to get others to it. And that's a really important way I think we can advance our mission.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to be too transparent with that, but that was where I was going with it. But I do have a question for Megan Beach, just for, and if I can proxy her just by, not as a vote, but a question. She would love to, she asked, could you provide a few examples of the knowledge goals for the middle school students, especially when you're talking about the foundation, just and yeah.
So maybe the easiest one is to think about our 6th grade foundations course, because we want our kids to understand just like the base of what sustainability is in that area. So one of the things that we are thinking about, if we think about content skills, is we want them to understand sustainability. We want to be able to connect with the UN Sustainability Development Goals, and we want them to understand how their choices affect our natural, built, and social environment. We do conversations in intermediate around natural, built, and social. And what we do here is we kind of blow, because they get out into natural a lot, we blow up that definition to help them see not only that like sitting on Frick Park is a part of the ECS mission, but like being here in the middle of Garfield is also a huge part of the ECS mission. So we are helping our kids to like expand that definition. That's like one of the biggest parts of the foundations class. And we're doing a future cities curriculum where kids are learning about infrastructure, space and zoning, how we build a city to be more sustainable. So that's like content goals. When we think about the thinking and like metacognitive goals, we want our kids to be able to ask good and useful questions, right? Like that's a huge part of how we have built our classes. So we want them to be able to show their thinking as they're going. So that's one of the making thinking visible. We want them to be able to know what kind of questions am I asking, which is this whole understanding map built by Ron Richard through all of his background research with Project Zero. And so they should be able to understand when they're just noticing and wondering all the way to when they're looking into the core of something. And so the semester that we have them for falls through that. And then in 8th grade, it's more focused on taking action. What does it look like to use those same skills and then to reach out to outside organizations, communities, and then prototype that. So like they're also going through the design thinking process to actually solve the problem. So those are some of the curricular goals of each one of those 2 classes. And I could go into robotics and remix too, but Friday.
Maybe to repeat those.
I was just going to say, yeah, just in the interest of time, if we have, if anybody has any other, maybe one more question, please. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, this is generating a lot of discussion. Maybe at some other point we can come up with a way to present some more information, because I think this is a good discussion, but also
Yeah,
because this is exciting stuff.
no, this is really exciting stuff. And thank you very much.
No problem. Pleasure's all mine.
Thank you.
If anyone does have any questions,
We know what you
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And this week, if you like see a word you don't understand, feel free to email me. Happy to have discussion.
Also, this is great, this one pager.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Is they're realizing you don't have to wait for the building to match it. And I think that's what the reigniting was, and so we are incorporating our conversation about building, and actually when you mentioned the foundation, Nicole really brings that progressive and green landscape and dinner's episodes sharing those pieces, but she's also bringing the community impact and environmental impact of how programming can intersect with environmental impact. So I do think that's one of the biggest pieces about money, I'm glad you guys connected that, but that was what we were talking about. It's not about the building, it's not about the building. We have to make sure our programs also match that.
In my mind also seems to be flexibility. Stuff is changing all the time. The landscape is what it is today, but 3 years from now it's be different. 6 years it's be
Which is why it's good to have someone outside, because we get stuck in the weeds in education, and so having a constant also external force, keeping us up to date with trends that are happening out there, not just in education, but we're talking about education in the sense of everything, and so keeping up to date with that. So, sorry.
Thanks, everybody. So let's just moving on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions about any of this? Want to discuss any of these?
Yeah. There's really just 3. I'll do that.
Excel is just it's a software that we use for our building programming, social studies programming, and social emotional learning. So that's the kind of contract involved.
That's what we use.
Yes. And that is our purchase order system, so this is how we manage our purchasing process to make sure that there's approvals in place. So that's why we're not doing that together.
Is there a reason why we're looking at 1 year versus 3? Is this something we are looking at, this potentially the micro?
Yeah, I'll say we're also, part of another project that we're looking at all of the applications that we try to do and try to understand that and how there's what we're asking parents to do, what we're asking. Yeah, so the outside angle project, I've talked to some of you about this. One of the things that I think would be really helpful for the organization is to start to think about how we take a look at the strategic framework that we have and start to think about how we understand what our objectives are and how to start to, how we actually measure that work and put together a process and a conversation, particularly with the leadership team. So by that I mean the folks call it sort of department head levels, and about 25 individuals at various levels, at various parts of the organization all across it, talking about their goals and objectives as they tie into the strategic framework. Obviously the mission, and I think there's a discussion we had about the mission statement, making sure we look at that carefully and understand that in the vision statement. And then doing that work also in part in conjunction with the board to make sure that the board's aware of and having input into this discussion and sort of thinking about what it is that we should be, the board from your perspective, but also we, the team, should be focused on and evaluating. I've come to sort of realize there are lots of different goals in the organization. Lots of people are, you heard Nikki talking about, she's got a set of goals, and I always use her because they're pretty concrete and they're pretty straightforward and easily understood. But you can find those in lots of other parts of the organization. When Dwight Lawton and I were talking recently, and they're very interested among other things and thinking, there are lots of things to think about, but just as a simple example, how much time do counselors spend sort of working directly with kids, filling out paperwork? So that's I'm just picking out like simple examples, but how do these things all roll up to and tie into, roll up within and tie into the strategic framework? And also, we have consensus across the organization that the goals that Nikki has, the goal is aligned to the goals that the building principals have. What Dwight's thinking about is aligned to what Nikki and others, you sort of think about it that way, and to also make sure that we're all just generally aware. This is how we're all thinking about it. And there isn't a whole lot of stuff that's measurable inside of the strategic framework. So the idea is to have someone that can help us facilitate that discussion, and do it rather quickly, quite honestly, because I think another thing that I'm really interested in, we talked with the leadership team about this as well, is rethinking the way that we talk to each other, with each other, about the progress that we're making. Historically, we've had it's called a State of the Union event. It's once a year. I think it's almost always in February. There was some time when we didn't do this, but I think that my idea here is to try to turn that into an event that's more participatory. And when I think of the State of the Union, I don't think this is actually how it went. It's one person saying, "This is the story. Go tell that story." That's not how it was done here. But what I'm imagining is that we would have a set of goals, a set of things that we're working on, that we're all agreeing on, and that every 6 months, perhaps, we would have a convening where we have some data to look at it and say, we're on target, we're not on target. Where is it working? Where isn't it? And how can we think about improvement? And I have also had some conversations with Jill about, and one of the meetings that we had early on when I first joined, we all had talked about this same idea, and there was a discussion around driver diagrams and things, and we'll go into that. But I think I'm seeing this as a larger, quicker process that will then also help us be able to move to what I'll call things I'm thinking about with my public health hat on, a continuous improvement or quality improvement process, which is really what I think Jill was talking about, we might be able to figure out a way to do that sort of relatedly and almost simultaneously, potentially, with this project. So outside Angle's group that I think we met with a couple of weeks ago, actually I think back in August, and talked to them about whether they can do this, and we think that they're able to do that work. They have a kind of interesting history here in Pittsburgh and elsewhere. So we're recommending that we bring them in to help work with the team and also work with the board. It would be 3 engagements, and it would also lay the foundation. You guys have talked about having a board retreat, and I think we'd also like to have them. They won't actually facilitate that discussion, but they would help us sort of lay the foundation for that conversation that we would have with the board. And again, the board would be part of some aspects of the earlier work, but we would ultimately have the board retreat. So these are, they're consultants, yeah, they're consultants. So the 3 individuals that we'd be working with, one of them is, I remember all their names, Sam Franklin he's one of the co-founders of this organization. Sam is a former PPS employee, but went on to run a charter school at one point. He was, like when he was a PPS, I should say this actually, when he was a PPS employee, he was the person responsible for designing and leading the team that designed SciTech at PPS. So he's got school design experience, led a charter school, I think, in California. Old school, oh yeah, that's right, old school.
Actually, weird. It was
Yeah, it was.
No longer around, but just an interesting story.
Yeah, exactly. Tara, whose last name I forget, also worked at PPS for a period of time, and then went on to do a lot of other things in this town consulting. And I think there's a third person, I don't remember if it was Mary, who's also one of the co-founders, I think.
And then, so what do we get exactly, like, is it literally like 3 days at their time, do they facilitate a discussion, or do they provide a product of some sort?
So I think what I'm looking for and what we've talked about with them is to put together the facilitation part. I'll do on level 2, but it'll be facilitation of 3 rounds of meetings. It'll be with the team, me, some of that will be with the board. So that would be the first thing. They would be taking, in these meetings, the goal would be to, you can sort of imagine how this would go in the course of 3 engagements. First meeting would probably full engagement with everybody who we need to work on that. Second meeting more robust, and then third meeting obviously much more robust. But in each of those cases, they would be putting forward, after having done some reviews and work, they would be putting forward some thoughts as to what they've heard related to the strategic framework, the goals that people have, how that all fits together, present it to folks. We would have a robust discussion. Again, I'm sort of, we've been talking about the department head levels, but there would be robust feedback and discussion, which then they would take, incorporate, revise based on probably the discussions that Mandy, Michelle, Dwight, Dean, Vicky, and I would have with them. So they put back a revised version. We do that 3 times. They would then help us also design, they would help us with they would facilitate and help us sort of think about with you guys about the board retreat as part of that process, and then ultimately help us design this sort of, I want to rename the name of this thing, but we keep calling it the State of the Union event, and put together a set, essentially like in my head, I'm imagining you could call it a couple of different things. You could call it a set of, a dashboard. I don't really like that word because that means it's really small. Thinking about a set of metrics, again, against which we can measure our progress continuously over time. And that you guys, like ultimately, it won't be the evaluation tool that you will use for the CEO, but it would be a part of that package, I think, or code that you would put, that you would use to evaluate my progress and ultimately organizational progress. The other thing is, I think we're thinking about survey work and trying to figure out how to do employee satisfaction type survey work, and think about survey work as it relates to the parents. And we've talked a little bit about external partner surveys, so trying to gather that information. So I don't think we would expect them to do that over time, but in the early versions, I think we want to make sure that employees, particularly parents and others as well, feel confident that if they survey, it's confidential, and they can give us good information, there's been some concern about that. So that's another part of the survey that they can provide. And I think my hope is that this engagement would either end or trickle very quickly to an end following the first round of that first State of the Union event, whatever we call it. But if we felt like we wanted to talk about that, I would prefer to sort of terminate it at that. Other questions?
It's coming to mind from a leadership book, and I can't remember who designed this visual, or get qualified by the person, but maybe you would know. But I'm thinking about like the discussions that we've had, and hopeful that this process could do this. So I drew it out here. But, I'm thinking about the discussions that we had over the past year, where we kind of heard like everybody's moving forward with this mission, but there's all these arrows going in different directions, right? And so progress forward is slow towards the ECS mission. And then the second arrow, and this is not my design, this is someone else's I'm using, is that what we're doing is trying to get everybody in the same direction to move faster and move together towards a common goal. So when we talk about like Nikki's work and Michelle, everyone's work in pockets, right? Instead of being all facing different, like facing forward. And so I think, if I'm hearing you correctly, the hope is that this group can hear these different pockets and help provide direction to get everyone to be that way. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's a beautiful illustration, first of all. I think that's exactly it. And also, like, there are going to be some conflicts. I mean, that's part of the reason why, like, your first diagram has there are some conflicts, right? And so, how do we get people to, like, part of this is about facilitating. And this is not a consultant. I think we've had some experience with teams that experience with consultants in the past, so we're learning about this. I'm not envisioning something like, this is how you do it, and I'm giving you this thing. It is rather going to be more about, like, I don't know if culture change is the right word. I think some of the conversations you and I had about driver diagrams and fishboning is really the culture change. But I think this is more about helping people start to have some of these conversations where it's, oh, listen, I want to accomplish X, and you want to accomplish Y. We're still trying to get to this larger picture. How can we resolve these sort of minor tensions to get to that larger goal of the goal moving forward? So yes, I think the picture is exactly right.
Yeah, my understanding is that it's along the lines of, I don't know if it's the right word, but there's a lot of facilitation of this group rediscovering, understanding the mission that we all
There's also this.
want to achieve rather than necessarily telling people to start doing X instead of Y.
I mean, for me, this should be, I've been trying. It's been 8 weeks, I'm now 8 weeks, but I have been trying to sort of have these conversations where, we have an issue with X, well, let's get a bunch of people in the room, and when I start saying, oh, that's the game, this guy. Get everybody in the room, and everybody tell what your issues are. So I think it's starting, like, people start to see that that's how, and I think, by the way, in the interviews, if I remember correctly, I said that that's how I think about solving problems. And this is similar. The difference is, I'll be really honest, I can't do the work, and I'm also asking the team to start to think about what their roles are. I can't lump on more additional work to the team. I need someone that can help us get to this basically by February. And it is going to be a lot of work. So if we can do it internally, I would much prefer that. But I can't.
You know which line item is
The
the professional services consultants? So,
And that's next year.
I'm looking at one time.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess it feels 6 months. Yeah, that's all. I mean, I'm optimistic based on what you're saying. If you feel like this is something that will be helpful, which is something as well, then it sounds great. But I feel like we don't have that many expenses at this size or bigger that we talked about here, so it was worth having a discussion.
I'm all about that.
And
And we did write it down.
And to the extent that part of this deals with strategic planning, is there any aspect of the board, and this is a small board, is there aspects of that, this could be discretionary board for that as well? Or could we even add one as a discretionary board? Yeah, but to the extent that. To the extent that this is strategic plan, there is not much of this strategic plan that is under what we do as the board, trying to figure out from a budgetary perspective, well, we know that, if there's a way that an allocation that we can make.
There goes our fun retreat.
Yep.
Well, I mean, this is like, ultimately, that's part of what I'm
We're
imagining.
planning on working.
We would have an opportunity, so we'll be doing this work, I think we're inviting you, my sense is we'd be inviting you to be a part of either some or all of you, whatever, to some of these discussions. We can figure that out. But at the retreat, which is what I understand you guys all have, we, sense is we would, as the leadership team, so again, Mandy, Michelle, Melanie, et cetera, would come and we would have this larger discussion about these things. And other things, I imagine all the other stuff we discussed, but that would be a big chunk of this. And that would really be the, one of the times I think that the board would find in design this.
Or we could have a retreat in Cabo. Cabo or. We run numbers on that.
Cancel the Greenbrier.
Somebody did.
All right, well, thank you. Thanks, Patrick, for, and I just for my 2 cents, I mean, I agree with Adam, and I expressed, I think, to Patrick, and and I haven't even worked in a K-12 school environment. Some of my skepticism, just very generally about, let's say, certain consultants. I don't know these consultants, but I think if there's a time to do it, we have a brand new CEO. We have this is the opportunity. We've been talking about since we started our searches. Rethinking or going back to basics on what's our mission and looking ahead to the future. It seems like if there's ever been a time to do this type of work, now is the time. And there's some risk that it won't be as productive the use of money that is maybe other things would be, but that's my 2 cents about it. It doesn't work.
The time we have to make.
That's right. We'll know for next time. Any other questions about that or anything else on the consent agenda? To vote? Okay. So I'll just read the resolution. There's no more questions. Resolution 2024-09-2132 be resolved by the Board of Trustees of the school that the consent agenda for September 2024 be approved. Motion? Second? All in favor? Anybody opposed? Motion passes. Resolution's approved. Next, item 7 is board education.
It's a typo, but we got to fix it.
Yeah, we don't need any education. You guys
Feel smart tonight.
All right, so we don't need that. Okay. The ECS FT representative report, my understanding is that they have nothing to report. PCO report, I also believe that there. Yeah, I don't think there's currently a PCO representative. I guess that's the report. They're looking for a representative. Other business.
Education committee met.
Okay.
So we can give you a brief summary overview of that. So education committee met. Thank you, Mandy, for your time. And she shared, and you may have had conversations with her and heard this too, that everything is starting in a very positive way. People are feeling different, settled in a way, and I think a huge part of that has to do with Patrick coming on board and the team, right? And things just not being unknown in the way that they were last year. And so that's really good news to hear. And that all of the schools are thinking about how they are or where they are in mission alignment, and then doing some PD related to their particular connections to how they see themselves in their mission alignment. We talked a little bit about the education committee's purpose, and just to make sure that we were on the same page, and just that we come back to the idea that program is really core and that everything else is operational, but it all serves to allow the program to have shape and be the thing that it can be because of the team of teachers that are here. So we want to just make sure that it's front and center or core, not necessarily front and center, but a significant piece of all conversations. And along those lines, there was some conversation about how the teachers were feeling about the construction of the high school. Do they see the connection to the mission, to the core, to their work? And a recognition that there were maybe those farthest removed in the elementary, primary in particular, might not see the connection to the high school and how that impacts their kids that they have in front of them right now. But something I heard tonight, actually, that this wasn't discussed in education, but something I heard tonight was like, the middle school feels like the bridge, right? If they can see what their kids can do in middle school, and then high school can look down and say, oh, we get these kids and we can take them further, it was the right place to start for a lot of this curriculum work, because it is a place in the middle for everybody to meet and then align in those kinds of ways. So there's some work to be done around communication and having people kind of see how the construction will support them. And then there was some talk about the transition moments between the schools and how to just understand what's happening, what's needed, and improve. And Mandy's going to have more to share with us on the next meeting. So that's it in the education committee. Unless anybody wants to share something that I might have missed.
I just have a question. I'm curious. I know you do a lot of engagement with PD early in the year. How are teachers like? What do you do to really checkpoints and staff 90 days? What does that look?
Yeah, it's ongoing, really. So in the middle school, it might be different in the buildings, but particularly in middle school, with Melvin, he's really not job that so teachers are always learning throughout the course of the year in those small communities with their curriculum peers, with content peers around the wellness area, so that they get that consideration of the year. And then when it comes to bigger PDs, more like district-wide, those happen on those professional development days. And then it's the job of those instructional coaches, which are now our associate directors, to make sure that those are showing up in classrooms. So they're having conversations with teachers all the time, drawing them back to those moments, whether it's Dr. Ayu and her new PD, making sure that's showing up in classrooms. So it's a food line now, rather than just like drop-ins.
Any other committee chairs want to say anything or report on anything? I was curious, Dave, I don't know, maybe there's not much to say, but in terms of recruiting, any updates?
Unfortunately, no updates, and it's not through anyone's fault, but just my own busyness. So there are 3 warm candidates right now, and I will make it a point to pursue those in the next couple days here.
Understood. Thank you. Any other business, anything else before we go into executive session? Why don't we take, always good to be doing recruiting. Learned anything. So why don't we take, let's see, it's 7:20, why don't we take like 5 minutes to take a break and then do executive session? All right, so why don't we go offline?
I think that is good.
It's Dan. Normally we vote to move into executive session.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's true.
Let's
do it. Well, did we go into executive session?